Well, fantasy football drafts approaching very quickly in the next couple weeks. He has a few wide receivers that are going in the mid rounds right now that I believe have number one receiver upside to finish in the top 12. The first receiver, T. Higgins of the Cincinnati Bengals. So T. Higgins, he's had a solid career, no doubt about it, and still one of the younger up-and-coming receivers in the league is T. Higgins. So last season, it was just injury-plagued year all around. T. Higgins in and out of the lineup, in and out of ball games. Joe Burrow, he obviously went down early in the year, and Higgins finished the year 42 catches, 656 receiving yards, and 5 touchdowns. So T. Higgins, he was a second, third rounder going into drafts last year, and then the fall off in the Cincinnati Bengal offense falling off as a whole. The numbers went down. So this season, Higgins going in that 4th, 5th round range, and I believe Higgins could get back to the top 12 this season. He's on a 1-year franchise tag, and I believe Higgins still one of the better route runners in the league, one of the more dynamic receivers in the league as well. And playing with Jamar Chase, where a lot of defenses roll attention to him, giving Higgins one-on-one coverage is where he could take over ball games and make big plays. So right now, like I said, the Cincinnati Bengal team, everyone's back. They're looking healthy. They want to make a run once again to try to get to another Super Bowl after the last couple seasons, injuries, and then knocked out in the playoffs a few years ago. And I think T. Higgins, where he's going on the draft board, and in my opinion, he's rising up my rankings, is T. Higgins over the last few weeks, where he looks healthy in training camp, and this Bengal team as a whole has a chip on their shoulder, and especially with his contract being a 1-year franchise deal. So I believe T. Higgins right now has that upside to crack back into the top 12 this season. Next receiver, George Pickens of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So quarterback play has been an issue for Pickens and the Steelers team over the last few years, and it hasn't looked any better this training camp and preseason, with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields competing for that number one quarterback spot entering the year. Last season, Pickens still had 1,140 receiving yards, with Kenny Pickett at the quarterback position majority of the season. 63 catches, 5 touchdowns, 106 targets. And this offseason, they didn't really do much to address the receiver position with a true number 2 wide receiver. I know the rumors with Brandon Ayuk have picked up on and off over the last few months here for this Pittsburgh Steelers team, but still no traction on that. I believe George Pickens, he's a wide receiver with major potential, and if someone could just get him the football in the right places, he could put up big numbers. But like I said, with no quarterback really last season, he still had 1,100 yards and found the end zone 5 times. We know he's one of the more athletic receivers in the league, one of the more acrobatic, could catch crazy passes type of receiver as well is George Pickens. And if Russell Wilson or Fields, whoever wins his quarterback job, could get it together, George Pickens could be in line for a monster season and potential a top 12 finish. Next wide receiver, Christian Watson of the Green Bay Packers. So Christian Watson, last season, injuries hampered him the whole year. And even his rookie season a couple years ago as well, they hampered Christian Watson. But we saw in the second half of his rookie season, he scored 9 touchdowns in 6 ball games. And last season, in the few games he did play, he made some impact, was Christian Watson. Only 28 catches, 422 receiving yards, and 5 touchdowns. But he's still one of the fastest wide receivers in the league. He could go up there and get the jump ball. And Jordan Love is a quarterback that's got that gunslinger mentality and loves driving that football down the field. And we saw last season a few games. Christian Watson, I remember one of those games at the Lions, first drive, 50-yard pass down the field. And this is what this Packer team wants to do, and they gave Jordan Love a boatload of money in the offseason as well. So Christian Watson, if he stays healthy, and we saw the potential, like I said, a couple years ago with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback position. He's got breakaway speed and game-breaking ability. And for Watson to go right now in that 8th, 9th round range, I believe it's great value. Where last season he was going as early as the 3rd, 4th round in fantasy drafts. I know these injuries did Watson in, but still someone to keep on the radar, and still someone I believe at top potential entering the season. Next receiver is Calvin Ridley of the Tennessee Titans. Last season, Calvin Ridley, a lot of people were big on him going into the year with the Jacksonville Jaguars, going that 4th, 5th round range in most fantasy drafts. And Ridley still finished the year pretty strong, 76 catches, 1,016 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns on 136 targets. And now he joins the Tennessee Titans, who gave him a monster contract in the offseason here with Will Levis, a quarterback who has another big arm. And I know last year with Trevor Lawrence, there was inconsistencies in drop passes, but overall the numbers I still believe were good for Calvin Ridley. So last year, like I said, he was going that 4th, 5th round range most fantasy drafts. And this season, he's going 6th, 8th round range now is Calvin Ridley, where I believe in 3 receiver leagues, he's a solid number 3 receiver for fantasy owners and a solid flex option as well. Because remember, Calvin Ridley, last season, he came off a year suspension, so sitting out a year, had to get his legs on the room, acclimate back to the NFL game. And then to get a monster contract this offseason, Calvin Ridley, he's going to be focused, and he wants to put up a big year for this Tennessee Titan team. So Will Levis, like I said, has the big arm. DeAndre Hopkins, he's banged up, even though he's claiming he's going to be ready for week 1 for this Tennessee Titan team. But remember as well, Hopkins is 32, and this is where wide receivers start to fall apart. And Calvin Ridley could be a little fresher as well, where he missed a season and a half of his NFL career. Remember with the Falcons late that year, he was out for personal issues, and then he missed that whole season. Suspended was Calvin Ridley before the return last season. So right now, Calvin Ridley, like I said, he's been moving up the rankings a little bit over the last few weeks, but still at a great ADP, 6th, 8th round range, with someone with number 1 wide receiver type of skills, going back to his Falcon days, and even last season where he was inconsistent, still put up over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns, and the 5th and final wide receiver with potential top 12 ability this season's Rashee Rice of the Kansas City Chiefs. So Rice, it's just a tricky situation, obviously, with off the field issues with that hit and run earlier in the year for Rashee Rice. But so far, there's no word if he's going to get suspended or not. And he's moved up the rankings a little bit as well, with that report coming out that it's not looking likely this season Rice will get suspended, but definitely next season's a possibility for Rashee Rice. Now with Hollywood Brown most likely out the first couple weeks of the season here, Rashee Rice now the number 1 receiver, even though last year he was a big catalyst in helping this Chief team go all the way once again and winning the Super Bowl. And in his rookie season, 79 catches, 938 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns on 102 targets. But like I said, he's going in that 5th, 6th round range is Rashee Rice. And he's got big playability, good breakaway speed. And when you play with a quarterback, obviously, like Patrick Mahomes, one of the better quarterbacks of all time, already pretty early in his NFL career with 3 Super Bowls under his belt, you're going to go out there and make plays if you just have some skill. I know they got guys like Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney on the roster who you thought would be breakout candidates over the last couple seasons, but had nothing to show for it. But already Rashee Rice in his rookie year had a big year and was the number 1 wide receiver on this team by year's end. So if he's not suspended, Rashee Rice, and where he's going ADP-wise, he's got potential to crack the top 12. Like I said, with a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, he makes things easier for everyone. So that's a few wide receivers who are going in the mid-rounds as number 3 wide receivers who I think have potential to be number 1 wide receiver upside in the top 12 entering the 2024 fantasy football season.